US President Donald Trump is forging ahead with massive tariffs on China, a bold escalation in a trade war that's rattling global markets. Starting today, Chinese goods face a staggering 104% tariff. That's after Beijing refused to lift its own tariffs on US goods. The White House says China wants to make a deal, but Trump insists they don't know how. Let's listen to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
Look, I just spoke to the president about this, and he believes that China wants to make a deal with the United States. He believes China has to make a deal with the United States. It was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight. But the president believes that she and China want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get that started. And the president also wanted me to tell all of you that if China reaches out to make a deal, he'll be incredibly gracious, but he's going to do what's best for the American people.
Trump is betting these tariffs will bring back US manufacturing, but economists warn it could just raise prices for American families. Trump also accused Beijing of manipulating its currency and announced more tariffs are coming, including on pharmaceuticals. Let's listen in.
Right now, China's paying a 104% tariff. Think of it, 104%. Now, it sounds ridiculous, but they charged us for many items 100%, 125%. Many countries have. Or today it was announced that China is reducing its currency. Did you see that? Big. In other words, they're going to make up for it. They got every trick in the book. I'll tell you, they are great. You got to hand it to them. You got to hand it to them. They're manipulating their currency today as an offset against the tariffs. Not supposed to do that. The game isn't supposed to be played that way. It makes it very hard for us. But in the end, it's not good because they have to buy oil. See, we don't need oil. We don't need oil and gas. We have more than any other country. They have to buy it. That's where it hurts them when they do that. It costs them twice as much.
Well, in another development, Trump has warned Taiwan's chip maker TSMC build in America or face taxes of up to 100%. Let's listen in.
TSMC, I gave them no money. Great company. Most powerful in the world. Biggest chip company in the world. They're spending $200 billion in Arizona building one of the biggest plants in the world. And that's without money. All I did is say, if you don't build your plant here, you're going to pay a big tax, 25, maybe 50, maybe 75, maybe 100%.
Well, despite global backlash, Trump says other countries are begging for deals and he's standing firm. Well, joining us to discuss some of these developments is Arvind Mahajan, a savings professor of finance at the Texas A&M University, who's joining us from College Station in Texas. Thank you very much, Arvind, for being here. The first big one that we have to talk about, of course, is this 104% tariff that has now been imposed on China. It's now come into force. How do you expect that the global markets will react to this big implementation?
Well, the numbers are just too high. Clearly, it's a game of chicken. This is a very unusual situation. I think the President Trump, has a reason to shake up the international system because indeed many countries had been imposing tariffs on American goods. And indeed, the US has been running deficits for a very, very long period of time. Now, having said that, there are two aspects to it. One is that foreign goods are cheaper, and therefore Americans, as rational economic agents, will buy stuff which is cheaper and better quality, irrespective of where it is made. That's one aspect of it. And the other aspect of it is Americans, while realistic feelings about buy American, people buy stuff which is in their best interest, and as a capitalistic system, Americans indeed prefer to buy stuff which is cheaper. And that is one reason why our imports have been significantly high. It's a rational buy stuff which is cheaper. Now, the flip side of that is to ask the question, why are the imports cheaper than the ones which are manufactured? I think there's some really, one is that labor costs, and in a globalized system where they can be manufactured in the cheapest way. And one outcome of that has been that manufacturing has been shifted overseas. So all what has happened has been reasonable, rational, can be explained based upon economic theory. It is true that some countries, and in particular China, have been subsidizing their exports because for them, providing employment is being very critical, especially as they move from being a developing country to being a developed country. And indeed, the president is trying to undo some of those unlevel playing field advantages which some countries were utilizing, including China. And indeed, therefore, to start with, talking about tariffs and other countries reducing their tariffs against US was a very reasonable exercise. However, this game has gone beyond what one would think it would be, because now it seems the president believes that tariffs really are very desirable, not just from leveling the playing field, but as a device to generate resources for the United States. So
Yes.
where the issue right now stands is it is unclear from the viewpoint of most people as to whether tariffs are an end game or they are simply a device for negotiation.
Yes,
If they are a
Arvind,
device
sorry to
negotiation,
interrupt, Arvind. I want to build off that. And we've seen Donald Trump throughout his second term use tariffs as a negotiation tool, as you've just mentioned. Is there a risk here, though, that these negotiations are so strong and these tariffs are so unprecedented that the impact could see devastation for consumers in the United States?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. Now, when you say that it seems that the president is utilizing these as a negotiating tool, that really is unclear. Because the president, even when, I mean, this is not come as a surprise during his first term, during the second term when he was running for an election, he talked about tariffs. I don't think people took him that seriously. But the issue of Smoot-Hawley bill, which introduced tariffs earlier part of last century, they were a device where they were an end in themselves, where they could generate resources where domestic taxes could be lowered because we were getting taxes from imports. So it is unclear, really, that the president meant these to be negotiating tool. And the market still is trying to figure out whether tariffs are an end game or they are simply a device as a negotiating position. The third thing, which really confuses things even more, is the desire of the president to bring manufacturing back to the United States. And the only way you can bring manufacturing back to the United States is by imposing tariffs over an extended period of time. So, to cut through the chase, the fact of the matter is, right now, it is unclear what the end game of this administration is, if you may. And that is kind of where we stand. And that is where the market is. The market is in a flux because it does not know exactly what the president's intentions really are vis-a-vis these tariffs.
Yes, Arvind, you're going to be staying with us, but we are now joined by Andrew K.P. Leung, who is a Chinese strategist joining us from Hong Kong. Andrew, we have spoken about these 104% tariffs, the unprecedented tariffs that Donald Trump's administration has imposed on Chinese exports. I'd like to first get your reaction now to these tariffs and what you think the response from Beijing will be. Well, while we get our line fixed with Andrew there, I will throw this question to you, Arvind. Do you think that we will see a major response from China? We've heard nothing yet since this 104% tariff has come into force. But what can China do to counteract this, given that any move will likely further escalate this trade war?
Yeah, I think so. Everything which we've seen from China so far is that China does not want to back down. I think in some ways, China is the contender. It wants to be the challenger to the United States. And the sense I have got is that China does not want, even though there has been talk about negotiations, I think China, the sense I get, is wanting to hang tough and wants to see how far the Trump administration will take this battle to. I've heard nothing from President Xi, which seems to suggest that they are willing to capitulate to the demands which the US has imposed on China of these unprecedented more than 100% tariffs.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's not just, of course, China who is seeing these unprecedented tariffs. Up to 60 countries, as we know, facing 11 to 50% tariffs. And in response, we've heard that countries have been contacting the US. The White House has said that over 70 countries have reached out to the president seeking tariff deals. In fact, many reports suggest that it's not just foreign leaders who have been dialing up Trump, but chief executives of some of the largest multinational companies have also reached out to him. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Caroline